My name is Awino Awiti. My initiative is called Unspoken Podcast. It's a podcast that brings untold stories to life, mostly women's stories. What motivated me to start this initiative was myself. I was the motivation. What I was going through at the time, I didn't have anyone to talk to, so I created this space so that it can be a safe space for me and a safe space for people who will be listening, to just find a place where they can be themselves and talk about issues that are normally not talked about, or rather talk about issues that the society shies away from. The people who benefit from my initiative are mostly women, and the listeners that listen to my podcast. I have 65% of women listen to my podcast, and the rest 35%, the remaining 35% are men. So how they benefit is I create a safe space for them to know that they're not alone in whatever they're going through. They're not alone, and through the podcast, I've been able to collaborate with other organizations like Victory Children's Home to give back to the community. I've been able to collaborate with other high schools to just give talks to girls, and I talk to them about things I wish I did different when I was still in high school. So the benefactors are the listeners and the community. My podcast listeners are 15,000 to 20,000 listeners per episode. So that's around 15,000. It depends with the episode. So it's basically 15,000 to 20,000 listeners. And then community, I think as per this year, close to 3,500 women. I've gone to different schools and different children's homes. My success story was back in 2023 when I got the opportunity to be invited as a guest speaker at my former high school, Kisumu Girls High School. So it was just a successful moment. It was just a full circle moment for me because I wasn't the best student in high school, but through the impact of my podcast, the school felt that what I did will be beneficial to the students, and it cemented the mission that I have for my podcast, which is your personal experience can really impact another person, which goes back to what I believe in till date, that everyone has a story and your story is part of you, and you never know how your story can change someone else's life. The first challenge I went through when I started my podcast was finding a community and finding that belief. My dad is a typical African dad. He believes you have to be employed by the government or you have to have a specific 9-to-5 job so that you are stable. He never believed that I can actually make a living from my content, from my passion. So that was the first challenge. I had to convince him, give me a chance. So that was the first challenge. But nowadays, he's my number one supporter. The second challenge was finding a community that believes in my content, finding a community that is ready to hold me down and listen to and love what I produce. And as for now, I have the best community. I call them the speakers, which basically is to just encourage them. Whatever you're going through, speak up. Learn to speak up. Like I always say, another quote I say, closed mouths don't get fed. So you have to speak up. Whatever you're going through, speak up, even if it's nice. You know, when you say whatever you're going through, someone thinks it's bad, it's a sad thing. You might be going through something nice and you haven't shared it with someone in the world. So yeah. Another challenge was monetizing the podcast. Definitely, it's very hard to run a podcast and even harder to monetize a podcast. So I had to hustle with production, with finding studio spaces to record, but I managed to work my way through that. I have a lot of goals. The first one is to be the #1 African storytelling podcast that brings untold stories to life. Another mission is to start a podcast network so that I'm able to inspire the next generation of podcasters so that they don't have to have a hard time the way I did. I feel like if I had someone who could hold my hand when I was starting, I'll be way further by now. So I want to start a podcast network that mainly majors on indigenous languages, podcasts that are done with indigenous languages, not just the typical English. I want to mentor podcasters in Luo, in Kikuyu, in Meru, different languages, because my podcast is about African identity, celebrating our identity as Africans, and just amplifying African stories, local stories to the world. Another vision that I have for the podcast is to make short films that are inspired by the stories I have on the podcast. I have this series on my podcast called What's Your Unspoken Story, which basically dives into narrative storytelling about anyone's unspoken story, because I believe everyone has an unspoken story. There's that one story you haven't told anyone, and those are the stories I want to tap in. So through those stories, I would like to make short films inspired by the stories. I would also like to write a book one day. I would also like to write a book one, because I feel like I have a lot to say and I love writing. I enjoy writing. Yeah. The last vision I have for the podcast is to go international, go global, man, go global, do live events across Africa and across the world, give back to the community. The first way my initiative has given to gain women's empowerment is the first thing I talk about, and I encourage all women listening to my podcast, is to first be shameless. I feel like I always say this on the pod every day. The moment you unlearn shame as a woman, that's the moment that you rise. Because I feel like we live in a society that constantly tells women they have to tone down their success. When you're good at something, you have to not show it off so that a man can't be intimidated by you. So we are unlearning that from the society, that we have to be shameless as women, because men out here, they're the most shameless human beings. The audacity that men have, I always say this all the time. I wish I had at least 5% of the audacity men have. I wish women had just 5% of the audacity men have, because if we just had that little audacity, we'll be very far as women. So number one, be shameless, because as a woman, if you're shameless, once you're shameless, there's nothing you can't achieve in this world. You're gonna conquer everything. So number one, be shameless. And I feel like from just that narrative, from that initiative, being shameless, a lot of people have resonated with my podcast. Sometimes people are so scared of being themselves. People are so scared of being who they are. Be shameless, man.